What is up, my fellow nerds? Before we get started, before I turn the green screen on, check this shit out. See that? Midoriya. Got this on Amazon just like 2 days ago, 2 or 3 days ago for about 40 bucks. It's got the mask there. It doesn't really like clip on or anything, right? Does it? I don't think it does. But it's still fucking beautiful. Look at that. Sexiness. Anyways, welcome, my fellow nerds, my fellow heroes. It is time to talk about chapter 100, that's 2 zeros, of Boku no Hero Academia. Very good chapter. We are now in the Training Dream Land, TDL. And this was created by Cementos, and they're pretty much going to be able to shift and build this training ground into whatever they want to suit the needs of the students to help build their quirks. And also, Aizawa tells us that part of the reason that they took them to that training camp out in the woods was to help build their quirks so that they could develop special moves. And that's what this chapter is about. Ectoplasm is using his clones to help train these guys. They kind of jump right in. They tell them, to think about their quirks and how they can use it to the best of their ability. So Tenya, Lida, wants to know, why do we need a special move to get these provisional licenses? And Aizawa explains some of the criteria that they are judged on to get these provisional licenses. So some of those include leadership, communication, their judgment, their mobility, and things like that. So developing these special moves will help them better their stats, I guess, in those criteria. And in some ways, like Lida, they already have special moves. So his would be his reciprocal burst, where he gets that huge burst of speed. We see off the bat that Ojiro and Ashido are having a bit of a hard time, and Ojiro is going to have to really develop his fighting techniques because his tail, while it gives him a lot of mobility and he is clearly very strong, there isn't a lot to it. There's nothing too special about it. So he's going to have to use it in some unique ways in order to make these special moves that are required of him. Ashido, she secretes like an acid from her body and she's trying to like shoot that out, and they tell her, maybe instead of just blasting it out of your hands, maybe you should clasp your hands together, kind of shoot it in a spray. But even then, yeah, she got some distance on it, but not a whole lot of versatility to that acid at the moment. Of course, she can use it in some pretty unique ways. It could be as simple as covering the ground around her with acid so that the enemy could not get to her. There's plenty of things that she could do with this, so I'm very interested to see how she develops this into her very own special technique or special move. Some of our young heroes, these students, I think some of their special moves could be pretty obvious. We have Tokoyami. He's considered as one of the more powerful students, and if he could just control his emotions as well as the light around him, that would give him a lot more control over his shadow beast. Now for Koda, I'm a little surprised that he doesn't actually keep an animal around with him. He doesn't have any pet that he uses because his ability allows him to control animals. Now, as long as they hear his command. And we saw in the midterm exam that he can even control insects. So if he kept something hidden on him, either insects or maybe if he just had a pet that he kept around, his ability is much more versatile. His ability can be used immediately. He doesn't have to find an animal to control. Now, if this pet was also very loyal to him, that would make things, I believe, even better. Kaminari comes up with his own little idea of maybe he'd create an electricity sword, which I would enjoy seeing. So he's going to try and control the shape of the electricity. And when he said this, I immediately thought of Kuwabara from Yu Yu Hakusho and his spirit sword, but also Killua from Hunter x Hunter. What if Kaminari uses a weapon that he then flows his electricity through, like maybe a yo-yo? But probably not, something a little bit different. But if he can find a way to actually control his electricity, change the shape of it, that could definitely be an asset for him. So it's about this time All Might shows up and he wants to be there to help out. He doesn't have anything to do. Now that he can't really do much as a hero, he wants to be of some use. So as he's talking to Aizawa, Bakugo's going nuts, having a good time. Of course, he just loves destruction. So the fact that he gets to fight against Ectoplasm's clones probably he is in ecstasy because he can just go all out. He doesn't have to worry about harming anyone. And the teachers clearly have high hopes for him. He has shown a lot of variety in the way that he attacks and in the way that he uses his explosions. He uses them as a boost to gain speed, uses them as straight physical attacks. He can use them as a distraction by creating a big enough explosion to block someone's vision. So the teachers have high hopes for him, and that makes perfect sense. He's extremely powerful. And then we see Mineta and Kirishima talking about how they've really been thinking about this their whole lives. Pretty much as soon as they develop a quirk, when they're 4 years old, they've been thinking about how best to use that quirk. And for Midoriya, this has to be hard to hear because his whole life he didn't have a quirk, so he wasn't really thinking about that. Although he has that hero book that we don't really see as much, I'm curious to see if he'll get ideas from that, but he has not thought of a way to use his quirk because he's still trying to just control it in general. So All Might kind of sees him contemplating, just kind of staring at his fist, like, how am I going to use this? So he goes over to talk to him. And what he says is a bit surprising. He says, I have some advice for you. You're still trying to copy me. And to Midoriya, it takes him aback a little bit because he has seen the quirk in action. His favorite hero is All Might. He looks up to him. So trying to control his power, his quirk, and make it as strong as All Might's has kind of been his goal so far, but he hasn't really thought of a way to use it in his own way, to make it unique to him. And he thinks, All Might thinks to himself, if I give him the answer, that's kind of the easy way out. So he's not going to give him the answer. He wants it. He wants Midoriya, he wants Deku to find it on his own. And maybe this is a new teaching style that he found in his little book that he's keeping in his pocket, which is basically teaching for dummies. And Aizawa notices it. But All Might tries to find a way to help out the students, and you see him walk off and start talking to Kirishima. So Midoriya decides that maybe one way he can develop his quirk better would be to go visit the development studio. And on his way there, he's thinking about his arms. Well, I need to find a way. I've done so much damage to my arms, I need to find a way to maybe reinforce them. And what I'm thinking is some sort of skeletal structure that may help him control the amount of aura or the amount of power that he's putting in specific parts of his body. So if this is going to increase his muscle mass, if he puts a skeletal structure underneath his suit to prevent his muscles from expanding too much, he'll be able to control the amount of aura he puts there, which in turn would help him learn how to control the amount of aura he's putting in there. So this isn't really a special technique, this is more of a way to control his power so that he can take the next step and create a special technique. So right as he's about to open the door to the development studio, you see Lida and Ochako. They're talking about what they're thinking to do with their special techniques, and then they see Midoriya, they try to say what's up, and he turns around and he smiles back, and even as he's still smiling, the door for the development studio just explodes, and I just love his facial expression as that's happening. And of course, this is the work of none other than Hatsume, who we saw a lot of in the sports festival. So she jumps right on top of Midoriya to kind of see if he's all right, or maybe not even to see if he's all right. She just really says, oh, like, I recognize you from before. But the only thing that Deku notices is her opie right in his face. And I'm normally not a fan of ecchi stuff or over-sexualization in manga or anime. And for example, I was watching Taboo Tattoo last night, and there's a scene where this girl is just being groped from behind by another girl, and the scene went on way too long. The only purpose it served was for fan service. Whereas this right here, it's kind of funny. You see that, Ochako has been conflicted about her feelings for Midoriya, and the fact that she's seeing him react this way to having another girl kind of jumped on top of him, it's not just his reaction is hilarious, that face, but her reaction as well could play a bit into her character development. I mean, yeah, I'm reading into it and trying to justify this right now, but it was just a funny scene. I enjoyed it. I thought it was funny, and I'm curious to see how Ochaka, if she gets a little bit jealous of that. But that's all I got for you guys this week. Congratulations to Kohei Horikoshi on chapter 100 of this fantastic manga. Go ahead and let me know in the comments section if you have some ideas for special techniques for the students. And also, what do you think Midoriya is going to do to his costume to help reinforce his arms, or just to give himself the edge when it comes to controlling his quirk? Thanks guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, go ahead and drop me a like, subscribe, and I will see you all very soon. Bye.